You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. I know there is a ton you could be listening to right now, and the fact that you're spending this time with me really does mean a lot. I really, really appreciate it. Some of these intros have been a little bit long lately, so I'm going to try to bust right through this and get to the juicy content. So the only thing I'm going to plug on this particular intro is the text community. Yes, that is still going. So if you don't know what that is, it is a number that you text 503-751-8577. And that is also in the show notes, so you don't have to swerve off the road to write that down. And that will give you a direct line to myself that you can message. And I have so far successfully responded to everybody on that particular chat. It's a lot of fun. We're talking about music business stuff on there, album releases, different things like that. So it's very, very fun. And it's a little bit out of the straight up gear talk and more in just like general music stuff and life and whatever else. I've had some really, really fun conversations on that text chat. And I don't share that with anybody. You can opt out anytime. Simple stuff. So check that out if that seems like something you are into. A huge thank you to everyone who streamed the American Cyclops record over the weekend. That has been really, really encouraging to see how many people are giving that a listen. Actually hit 1,000 streams, which I was not expecting since it's already been out and people have already listened to it on the podcast so many times. So thank you to everyone who streamed that, and I have some more music headed your way very soon. So if you want to follow on whatever streaming app, that would be very, very, very appreciated. Got more music coming to you very soon. Okay, that's enough plugging. Let's get into this one with my dude Ryan from Demos in the Dark. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Ryan Plewatki from Demos in the Dark. Long overdue, and he's finally here, and we're going to do the thing, and we're going to pretend like we haven't been talking for 15 minutes already.
Or 3 years.
Yeah, or 3 years. Right. Or 3 years. Yeah, we haven't just like hung out at NAMM for hours.
Right.
We haven't done that. No.
I haven't ridden in. You haven't picked me up at the airport.
No. We haven't ridden in cars together, and if none of that's ever happened ever. I don't know why it's taken me so. We were talking off the air about our mutual buddy, Mr. Brian Fallon, because I love his music, and the fact that we're friends now, I still have to like pinch myself sometimes, but. I was just thinking, like, wait a minute, because Brian was texting me about something about one of your videos, and I was like, why haven't I had Ryan on the podcast? This doesn't make any sense.
Well, so, I mean, we'll see if I'm interesting. I don't know. This could be this could be a sleeper. But Brian texted me. First he sent me a message on Instagram, and he was like, he asked a question about some kind of sound he was going for and wanted to know if I had any recommendations. And I gave him the recommendations, and then I ended it with, also, this is the craziest thing ever.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
for real, man. It's like, okay. Well, I've been listening to you for 15 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's weird. So doing the, and I'm sure you experienced this with the podcast thing too, but like doing the gear demo thing is interesting because I came to the realization, especially during COVID-19, that, like pro level people, pro level musicians research gear the same way everybody else does.
Yep.
And so, I would get these messages from like David Torn and stuff like that. I'm like, what? You're David Torn. I am sitting in my basement, it's been pretty, like Dweezil Zappa and stuff. I'm like, what is going on? This is so crazy. But Dweezil, of course, didn't ask for any advice because Dweezil doesn't need any advice.
No, I think he's got it.
Yeah.
I think he's got it figured out. But no, it's true. And I think because you and I are sort of in this weird world and have been for several years of like where the gear world and like a professional touring musician world is sort of different in our head. Mm-hmm. Because for us, we're like, this is just this thing we became obsessed with and started doing. And I know you've done a lot of like different gigs and stuff over the years, but it's still like kind of a different thing to be in like your own touring rock band versus creating content for the internet. At least it feels different. But at the end of the day, you're kind of doing something very similar.
Yeah. So, well, to a degree, I would say that the drive is different, and the way I always kind of put it is, if you were on a road trip and you got thirsty and you stop at a gas station, convenience store, Circle K, whatever, and you're standing in front of multiple refrigeration units full of soda, and you pick the one that makes the most sense for you, the one that is the one that you like, the one that you're feeling at that moment. That's kind of how gear demoers to me are, where it's like the draw, like I didn't make you thirsty, but the draw is actually the product, and so the product is actually the king, and I am just the way you recognize and want to hear it. So I am just your preferred, like if you are a subscriber to Demos in the Dark, I am one of your preferred messengers of the product. But as far as my, who I am, if I put out a record tomorrow, nobody would buy it. Nobody would listen to it. So once I made that realization, that was a big shift. Whereas, somebody like Brian Fallon is the draw, right. I'm just a vehicle. And so, that's where I see a difference there.
I think you're partially right. I think you're right to a degree. I think the gear is what gets people in the door for demo channels, and even to this podcast to a degree. Like people are like, oh, they're going to talk about gear, and then I pull a fast one on them, and I'm like, nope, we're talking about aliens,
right?
And so like it kind of gets people there, and they're there because they want to hear what you can do with the pedal. But I know for a fact that there's people that go to your channel and Andy's channel and Knob's channel and all these different people, and they go for the gear, and some of them leave once they get the information they're looking for. But then some of them are like, I really like what this person's doing. I really enjoy their spin on this. And let's, how many people have you seen in the comments, especially of like Knob's videos, that are like, oh, you need to make a record,
Yeah.
And his whole Patreon is like him like messing with sounds kind of outside of the demo itself.
Yeah. I get those comments as well. Like, when's your record coming out? It's like, well, I've put out 4. But so like a bit, one of the big eye openers for me was I did a video where I grabbed my dad's early 70s Les Paul Custom, and it's been sitting in a case for forever, and it had super distortions in it, and it needed to be brought back to playing level, and I in my mind it was a really great story, and and I filmed the whole thing. And, I worked with, a couple, I worked with like Righteous Sound on it to get, some really accurate T-tops, and I worked with the local luthier on, basically getting the guitar kind of back into playing level and stuff like that. And you go to slap it up on YouTube, and I'm like, I'm just expecting immediate like interest, and like, this is a cool story. And I even brought my dad into the video for part of it. My dad plays us out, and what I discovered was that people were like, oh, I can't buy that, I don't care.
Right.
And, and I was kind of like, and so for me, that was a big eye opener, where I was kind of like, yeah, you know what? This isn't totally about me. Like, this is, I mean, like, if I don't have something, if I'm not showing you something you could buy, and I know this too, because when I show people something like the last Cooper effects pedal that sold out in like a half a second, people were mad at me for having a video up because they couldn't buy it. Like,
well, how dare you? How dare you?
And so, so I get it, but I totally understand that frustration. But at the same time, that has those kinds of experiences have kind of led me into this belief system that I am the smallest part of my channel. Like, so, I don't know. And if I'm wrong, it's probably not a bad attitude to have.
It's probably not. It's so I don't know if you saw this or not. I didn't post it like everywhere, but I put it on Facebook and like my Instagram story. But the other day, our mutual friend Devon Blue and myself were on the phone for a long time. We had a 5-hour phone call.
Holy smokes!
It was one of those too that like I didn't really realize it had been that long. All of a sudden, I just looked down, like, I wonder what time it is. And I was like, oh, we've been on the phone for 5 hours.
Yeah.
Wow. But he was expressing sort of a similar thing, like how many people, like for him, the people who listen to his music and the people who watch his demos are like different people.
Yeah.
And I definitely see how that is true. But for me, for myself, having just started refocusing specifically on music lately.
Yeah, you just put out a record.
Yeah. And I didn't know if I would ever actually do that, especially not solo like that.
Yeah.
And the feedback and the amount of like messages and stuff I've gotten on that, I know that would, even if I made the exact same record, I never would have had that many people check it out had I not already had people checking out what I'm doing for the podcast.
That's a fair assumption.
So it's kind of like this weird catch-22. It was like, I see what you're saying, that it doesn't necessarily translate on a one-to-one. It's not like everyone that watches my demos also is going to be interested in my music. That's super not true. Right. Same way with, everyone who listens to this podcast was super not interested in my weird horror movie record. But there was enough crossover that I'm like, I'm really glad that I have those people to share things with. And now maybe I can start building that up, sort of simultaneously. That's kind of been my viewpoint on it. But you're not entirely wrong, because, there are people who listen to this show, and I know this for a fact because Spotify tells me, there are a lot of people who listen to this show. Their favorite artists are John Mayer and Jimi Hendrix, and nothing I do is ever going to sound anything like that. So it's not going to be for them. Yeah. It's going to be more for like people who like John Carpenter and 9 Inch Nails. Yeah. Apparently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't necessarily put anybody in a box on that, but I don't know. Yeah, we're just really complex creatures is what it all boils down to.
That's true. There's more to us than just what pedals we like.
Right, the sum of our pedal boards.
Yeah. Actually, maybe not.
Yeah,
for me, that's probably not true. I am the sum of my pedals. That is me. But speaking of you and being more than just your pedals, there's so many things I don't know about you. I know about when our friendship started, and I know like what you've done roughly since then, but I don't know much about it before that. So when did you didn't just wake up one day and like have you got sick riffs? Let's be honest. Like we're just gonna get that out there. You've got sick riffs.
All right.
And I'm gonna assume that you weren't born with sick riffs.
Yeah.
So how did you get there?
Okay. So, well, I was a full-time musician for a long time. And, what ended up happening was the business got very hard to be in. And when I started, and this is going to age me quite a bit. I mean, I'm 40 years old. So when I started, I was at the tail end, and that was still when you could make a healthy sum of money, even being like a local, kind of a local legend type, or just gigged out every night of the week. You could make a pretty good living doing that. I did more than that. I played in touring bands and did lots of session work, lots of ad work actually. And so the ad work is actually how I translate to doing the demo stuff, because in my mind it's almost kind of the same thing, or it's at least the closest comparison I can make. But so the business got very hard, and I was finding myself on the road more than I wanted to be, and working harder than I wanted to be, but I just didn't know how to do anything else. And about that time, our friend Sayer had just started this idea of this distribution firm, which at the time was called Motherlode Audio Supply, and is now called Mass Distro. And he called me up, and the timing was perfect because my wife and I just found out that we were pregnant, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to provide for my family and be present for my family without being on the road all the time. And I don't know how to do anything else. Like I don't have a resume, and so, he was like, I need some extra help. This could be some part-time income for you. Then that thing just kind of exploded, and now it's a full-time career. But we were at a point where it was just the two of us. It was before we got fully staffed and things like we are now. And when you're a small company and something has to be done, one of the two of you has to do it. And the demo thing came up where this is something that we should offer to our customers or our clients. And we just kind of drew straws on it, and I picked the shortest straw. And so I started doing demos for Mass Distro. And I didn't know anything about, it was a borrowed camera. Sarah gave me a camera to borrow. I didn't know how to work it. I was afraid to touch the knobs on it. And the end result of whatever I had that camera set at, and being in a very improperly lit room, was that the demos were super dark. And so I just decided to call it the most obvious thing. To a certain extent, it was almost like calling out the trolls before they got to me first. So that was that, and they were terrible. I mean, they were like the first 50 were horrible. Session work, a lot of and I feel like session work more than anything else is kind of what prepared me, because what you do is when you don't have a project to work on specifically, what most agencies will have you do is they have you kind of fill up a library, and and you're filling this library of different ideas and different songs and things like that. And then the hope is that, it can be kind of an a la carte thing. If they do have a client in it who's not entirely certain what they want, they can go through and listen to these samples and then, hopefully pick one. rather than starting from scratch on a new advertising platform. So I was constantly just having to fill up these, like these 3-minute slots of, songs and ideas and riffs and things like that. And so I'm just doing the same thing now. And except having it be, like you listen to a piece of gear that you're getting in and you're like, oh, this kind of sounds like it goes in this direction. And so you write around that. The thing that's different from that, obviously, is the part where I go in and explain what it does, which I still, at this point, feel like I need way more practice at. But
yeah, I mean, explaining stuff it can be hard because honestly, and even, people like us who obsess about this stuff, neither of us, at least I don't think you have, neither of us really build things.
No.
And so we're not sitting there like knowing exactly what the knobs do on, the Cooper effects generation loss. Like, I mean, some of the things we do, but like some of it, it's like, well, it kind of makes it warble.
Yep.
But I don't actually physically know exactly what it's doing to the sound wave,
and I take that position all the way. And the reality is I'm not, anyone who wants to know that stuff probably doesn't know what they're even hearing anyways. But I come at the whole thing as a perspective. It's coming from a player, and so you can, and I'm sure you can pick out some very distinct illustrations of this, but you can watch scripted demos where someone has written down a very technical description that they got from the manufacturer, and you're like, you have no, like, you're just reading words on the screen. You have, like, if anybody asks you a question about this, you're not going to have an answer. And so, like, I want there to be no mystery in that. I am not a person, I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not a whatever. I just know what the thing sounds like. And if it sounds good, if it doesn't sound good, if it, like, if it feels good, if it doesn't feel good, if it's weird, if it's not weird, like, I know that kind of stuff. But, if you want me to talk about patents, and I'm not going to know.
Right. I mean, it's weird because I know just enough to be dangerous sometimes.
Yeah.
But then if you push me much further, I'm like,
well,
it's yellow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you want to be, the person who is not an expert in that, talking about it and run the risk of being wrong, but also being in a position of authority because you have a podcast or you're running a demo channel or something? You are an informational, you're a place where people go for information, and you're giving out wrong information. And it's like, man, I don't know if I want that responsibility, because that quickly, like, that's TGP in a nutshell. Like, it's a bunch of people who don't have the right information saying things with great authority. And, like, I just don't want to be a part of that disinformation thing. Like, I don't want to be like the QAnon of gear demos. So I just, when it comes to really technical stuff, but what I do have the ability to do is, when there is a very technical question that comes up, is I have the ability to go, hey, Tim Marcus, or hey, like, whoever, can you come in here and answer that question? And most of the time they do, and that's really great. But yeah, I'm not the guy to answer them.
Yeah, I will sometimes, like, get on my soapbox when I have to be very confident.
Yeah.
And I kind of have to, like, I have to know what I'm saying is a fact when I'm getting into technical stuff. I'll express my opinions willy-nilly all over the place, whether they're right or not. But if I'm going to state something as an absolute fact, I better have some really, really solid information on it. And I probably have failed at that a few times, but I try to be I try to be objective when it makes sense, and I try to explain that if I'm if I'm being subjective, I hope people understand that I'm being subjective when I'm making certain statements. It can be a tough line to walk.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, what a weird world, you know, that we live in this industry, where, you know, like if you look at something like camera reviews or camera lens reviews and stuff like that, you know, like it's a very, it's a different avenue, you know, a very different technical avenue where like things can be a little bit more black or white. But, you know, like you watch a camera review and they will talk about all of the areas where something else is better, you know, or like something else, or this, you know, this lens misses the mark in this particular area, or, you know, whatever. And that's a thing that we don't, you know, like I feel like we give our opinions on things, but we do it in a very gentle and nice way, where you know, any other like world of review stuff, like they're brutal. And so that, yeah, giving your opinion becomes even weird too at the same time, because there's this, I don't know, there's almost like this cloud of like niceness that comes around our industry, which is strange, but because we're not nice people.
No, none of us.
No.
Especially not either of us.
No.
I mean, I think there are degrees of that where it's like, yeah, these are our friends and we don't want to bash anything. But I'm sure you operate from the same place that I do. Like if I don't like something, I'm not going to bother bashing it. I'm just not going to talk about it.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. So that's the position I've taken. You know, it's kind of, you know, if you have nothing nice to say nothing at all. And that's cool. And that's a good way to operate. And that seems to be the way. It seems to be the way the industry operates. I don't see, you know, like I've kind of watched this whole thing come down on this Shane pay to play business, and I've watched how that has just kind of given a lot of people reason to not trust what's going on and what they're hearing and what they're, you know, like so that it's been interesting to see, but it to a certain extent, like you don't get the full picture with what, you know, like the way they outline that, you don't get the full picture. Like you don't know that for every one demo that I take, I turn down 4, you know, like, and you don't know that it's, you know, something like, I don't see very many people in the industry who are like, I'm just doing this for cash. I will take anything. I will take any product in if the dollar amount is right. I don't see anybody doing that. And so I think that I would venture to say that anyone who's in this, because this is a thankless job. It's not like, you know, it's not like we're out there making tons of cash. You know, typically the income that I pull in from demo stuff is to pay for lights and to pay for cameras and to pay for, you know, better recording equipment and, you know, all kinds of stuff. It all pretty much goes right back into the finished product. And you know, so anybody who does this is passionate about doing it because it's a lot of work and it's not a lot of pay. You know, if we look at, you know, like somebody who charges like $200 for a demo or something like that, but it takes them 20 hours to do it, that's a $10 an hour job. And that's terrible. Like that's terrible pay. And you know, like I just felt like it opened up this really weird can of worms that I am still trying to wrap my head around because I have, ever since it happened, I've got these questions like, well, did you get paid for this? I'm like, yes, but I still like it. Like I still like everything I just told you is still true. But, you know, like, would it make a difference if I hadn't? I don't know. And it's a weird time to be doing this right now.
I also don't really understand, like, this is the thing. Like, people like, I've seen this in different forums from people who are uneducated, let's just say that, or misinformed. Like, they genuinely believe that it's an extremely lucrative opportunity to be a Guitar Gear demo person. I don't know anyone that's doing this that is just Scrooge McDucking their way through life and swimming in piles of gold coins. Like, literally nobody.
Right.
And if they are, I don't know anybody like that, but I would hazard a guess that that's not where their money comes from.
Exactly. And, I know a few people who do this for a living, and they have that money comes in from all different kinds of places. It comes from merch sales and Patreon, and there is the demo itself is not the big money maker, because typically whatever is being charged is pretty nominal, and yeah, it's I think there is some wild misconceptions about what it is that what we're even doing. And, to a certain extent, yeah, it's advertising. Of course it is. But, are we out to steer you wrong? No. Are we out to I would not put my neck on the line to steer a bunch of people wrong, for $200. Nobody would do that. I don't think. Maybe somebody would do that, but no one I know would be like, $200 is worth me being disingenuous to a lot of people. But that seems to be to a certain, there's a certain faction out there that is very strong on this, and because you hear from them a lot. But I think for the most part, most people are just kind of like, yeah, that's how this works. I don't know.
It's hard to understand. I feel like, and I don't know, I'm not like this person with massive powers of observation or anything, but I knew that Andy worked for Pro Guitar Shop when I first started watching his demos.
Right.
I knew that he worked for them. Like, that's his job. And I knew that Pro Guitar Shop wanted to sell me that pedal.
Yep.
And they were going to present it in the best way that they possibly could. And that's the whole point.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is all of a sudden some sort of big aha moment for people. Like, yeah, people get paid for their services.
Yeah.
If you hired somebody to play at your wedding, are you going to be like, well, he just did it for the money?
Right.
What?
Right.
It's like, yeah, this person came to entertain you and you paid them a wage to do so.
Yeah.
With the pedals, it's like somebody is paid to show you what they can do with this particular device.
Yep.
I don't understand how there's this massive difference between the two. I
don't either. And what's funny is the opposite, I think, if you do a really good job and your audio sounds pristine and your video work is done really well, people will be like, oh God, that's overproduced, whatever. And then, by the same token, if you do something terrible, that has bad audio and bad video, they're like, why'd you figure out how to do this? And you're just like, so what I've literally decided and is that there is no way to actually win with certain people. And that's fine. They're just going to, for whatever reason, continue watching these, hating every second of it. But the thing that I found with Shane's deal was that it gave them fodder. It gave them, I don't think any of these people I don't think any of them particularly care. I think they just need something to be mad about. And so they will pick out anything, any little thing that they can. And for a long time, it felt like they were reaching. I had a lot of people making fun of my hat, then now it seems like it almost feels like Shane gave them their weapon, and so that's what we hear now. Where's your how much you get paid to do, and it's like, thanks, Shane. Thank you, Shane. Like, thank you, Shane, for helping out all of your fellow content creators out there, and all of the rest of you who are involved. 60 Cycle Hum, Henning Polly. Thank you guys. Thank you for making my life a lot easier. And I don't know if that was the intent. My assumption is that it was one of those things where they were like, this is a thing, this is a topic that they thought would be interesting to people. And turns out it was. And it's just, if you weren't in that video, you got burned as a result.
It's kind of a weird thing. I saw it come out and I didn't watch the whole thing, admittedly, because I was like, yeah, duh, guys. Why is this news?
Yeah.
This is news? Is the sky also blue?
Right.
Like, do birds fly? Like, what? Oh, wait, birds aren't real. I forgot about that.
Right.
And for those listening that don't know what we're talking about, I guess we were kind of being general in our statement before, but there was a video that came out, what was it, 6-ish months ago?
Nah, it's like 3.
3
months ago or so.
Which is 5 years in internet time.
Right, exactly.
And it was a bunch of content creators in the Blues channel talking about what we're talking about right now. Demo guys being supposedly dishonest. And maybe this is me being ignorant. I don't know of anybody who I have associated with that wasn't open about how they operated. Do you know of anyone? I'm not asking you to call anybody out, but like, in your experience, is there anybody that you can think of that's just like hiding that fact?
No, not off the top of my head. I do know. I'm very open about the fact that I work for Mass Distro, and that's my day job. And the reality is Mass Distro products are about 10% of what is on my channel. But I think everybody should know that I do work in the industry. And that I stand to make money from the industry because that's where, that's how I put food on my table. There are other content creators out there who have similar positions who have not disclosed those. I'm not going to go ahead and disclose that for them, but that's the only thing that I know. They're not as forthcoming about it. That's the only thing that I can come to a real. But everybody else is very forthcoming about what they do. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of gray area. I mean, there are people who I work for free. Because I know they're in a situation. I know they're in a situation where they don't have the budget to do it. I do like to support the smallest of the small, and we're just really good friends. That's I'm just doing a favor for a friend who will take me out to lunch later, or has done multiple favors for me, and we have this kind of relationship. Like, where does that fit into checking the box, Shane? It just made a very black and white thing, and it made a moral and ethical thing out of something that I don't think is a moral or ethical thing. Exactly. And also what it did is it created a problem that they then attempted to solve in the video. And it was like, man, it was a mess, and it's been a mess, and I thought it was going to go away, and it hasn't. And you stack that on top of somebody like Mick doing a video where he's like, don't believe your ears. Content creators use all these different tools to, it's like, dude, it's like, we're trying it as hard as we can here, but what are you guys doing? So it's been a weird 6 months, 3 or 4 months, doing this, just kind of dealing with the perception of what it is that we do. And it's been tough.
I don't think I saw the Mick video. You're talking about that pedal show?
Yeah.
I'm assuming?
Yep. Yep, he did a bit.
Don't believe your ears. What do you mean? Don't like because the audio's been messed with to such a degree that you can't trust it. Basically,
essentially, he took some. I think he took like a basic pedal. Maybe it was even like a clon or something like that, and he ran it through. Multiple different amps, multiple different miking configurations, multiple different whatever. And he was just kind of like, essentially he was like, you can't trust anything that you hear. And which, kind of like the it coming from him gives the implication that like, yeah, but you can trust good old Uncle Mick. Because he was the one who brought it to everyone's attention. But yeah, it was like this, like, like, you don't know how this is going to be recorded. You don't know what's happening to this thing. Anybody can do anything, to these audio files before they reach your ears. And, like, you don't know. And I was just like, dude, why? I still don't know. Other than, he, got a pile of views off of it. Like, I don't know. It was weird. It was a weird couple of months, and it's all still lingering over. It hasn't gone away.
It's a very weird thing. I mean, one thing I wanted to touch on earlier when we were talking about, whether we talk positively about a piece of gear or not, the other thing, like you were comparing it to the camera industry. Well, like, okay, if you're, you take a picture with one lens and you take it off and you take a picture with the other lens, and it's like, oh yeah, you can definitely see this one enhance the sharpness of this particular photo in this particular way. And you can kind of see it on the screen in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. With music, it's all subjective. I've been spending the last 3 days trying to figure out why people listen to grindcore. Mm-hmm. And I still can't quite figure it out, even though I'm a guy that likes really heavy music.
Yeah.
And I like aggressive music. I like listen to Pig Destroyer, who is, supposed to be the top of the heap in that genre in a lot of ways. And I'm like, I can appreciate the musicianship, but mm-hmm. subjectively, this is not for me.
Yep.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The same thing happens with gear. Like the same thing happens with this flanger, I don't know, that doesn't really work that well for me. Mm-hmm. Sometimes without any real explanation for it.
Yeah, I do think that, and that is really what it boils down to. Where gear is a very personal thing because not everyone plays their instrument the same, and what works for one person can. A really good example is I have a guy who I consider to be a mentor in the guitar world, and he for years used an OCD pedal, and I have in the course of a number of years, I bought every single version that I could get my hands on of the OCD pedal, trying to reach the kind of sounds that Jeremy was able to get out of it. And what it came down to is like, I don't have his hands, and something else works better for me because I have my hands. So yeah, it is a far more subjective industry than very clear, here's the resolution on this versus the resolution on this. Here's the bokeh on this versus the bokeh on this. And, we don't have those we can give those concrete figures, but they don't necessarily tell you anything. If that makes sense.
Even sometimes when I get it. Sometimes even when you do though, like there's Wampler's done a bunch of videos where he's like, okay, I'm going to change this op amp now in this circuit. Let's see if you can hear a difference, and some people are like, oh, I can tell it's night and day. And you're like, oh, I didn't change it. I'm just kidding.
Oh, really?
or whatever. Yeah. Or he'll make some minor adjustment. Like he's done videos where people have swore up and down that they can hear there's massive differences, and he'll go into like the frequencies, and be like, see, I didn't really change that much when you made this particular.
It's like the old sound guy trick where you're like, hey, can I get more of myself in the monitor? And they'll be like, how about now? How about now? How about now? And they're not doing anything. They're just saying, how
Yeah,
about
they're just
now?
tweaking a knob that's not
They're not even, you know, like their hands are in their pockets. And you know, eventually you'll get to a point where you're like, yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, man.
That's the thing, is it is all so subjective. And also I've played pedals and different pieces of gear that I'm like, man, this is the best distortion on the planet. I can't believe how no one has figured out how this is the finest and greatest distortion pedal ever. 3 days later, I'll plug it in and try to use it for something, like, man, this thing sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Like, and the pedal didn't change. The pedal didn't change anything. The amp is still the same. Everything's the same. It's just like, hey, my mood's different. My ears are more rested or less rested. Something's different, you know, and that can change with genres of music, and it can change. I mean, people are a lot more fluid with their musical taste than I think we want to admit sometimes. And
absolutely, that
is the big X factor.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I had a similar thing to your grindcore thing, where in college I really wanted to. I had a professor who was really into pipe organ music, and I would listen to pipe organ music, and I'd go, man, it just sounds like they got their feet on the keyboard, and you know, like, just this is awful. And I spent a really long time trying to understand pipe organ music, and then I actually went to my first recital. And it turns out you have to actually like feel those low notes. Like it's not a thing that you can experience over a recorded piece of music. So it was a very different experience. Still didn't like it, but at least at that point I was able to go, got it. I now understand why people like this. But you have to be in a big chapel to get it. But yeah, no, music is absolutely. I mean, absolutely, and you know. And what people hear is very different. You know, you can play the same thing for 5 different, you know, just the same. If you were playing one note with one pedal and you played it for 5 different people, you would get 5 different responses as to how it sounds. And yeah, and you know, kind of to your point, and then if you asked them 2 days later, would those answers still be the same? I don't know.
Yeah, and the other thing, you know, I haven't watched this pedal show video yet, but I'm going to have to. But for me, and I haven't done nearly as many videos as you have, but when I do a video trying to show off how something sounds, I've told people this many times. When I go in to edit that track, my entire goal, no matter what I have to do to achieve the result, my entire goal is to make it sound like it sounds to me in the room, in my headphones.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. So sometimes I'm like, oh man, there's a lot of buildup in the low end on the way I had this mic placed for some reason. So I have to cut some of that out. Like, oh, you know, this sounds different. Like I have to mess with things. My whole goal is to make it sound to my ears on as many different, you know, listening stations, I guess, if you want to call it, like my phone, my car, my monitors, my studio headphones. I'm always trying to get it to sound like I'm standing in front of the amp playing it. And I don't think that that's disingenuous. I don't think that's cheating.
No. And that's the thing. That's the thing that you got. I feel like you have to trust, if you can, with content creators, is that, you know, I don't think anybody's out there trying to snow somebody over. I think, you know, like, I think at the end of the day, what you hear is what they think that sounds like. You know, and I don't do a lot of, so in the track portion of my demos, at that point, I take as much liberties as I want. Like I will compress and, you know, mix out the low end, and, you know, like, and the purpose of that is to really give you an illustration of what something is how something could be used in in a recording application. But then when I go to the back end and do like the actual strumming chords and turn in knobs, you know, I don't do any EQ. I do some light mastering just to kind of make sure that everything is going to be pleasing to the ear. But, you know, you want to get really granular with this, like, you know, like what mics I'm using. You know, mics add character to things. If I'm plugged into a preamp, you know, the preamp adds character. Like I may not be using any plugins, but just the nature of recording a thing, is going to give you some character that is going to be different than what is in the room. And like, there is no answer for that. There's no because there is nothing in the world that is going to give you a pristine exact replication of what something sounds like in a room. And there is no universal amplifier that is going to encapsulate all of the different amplifiers that people use. There's no universal guitar that is going to encapsulate all the different, like, there's just no way to do it. And so this kind of goes back to the soda thing where, like, you do have to find a content creator who, and whether I don't think anyone does this consciously. I think we do it subconsciously where, like, you find the content creator who plays like you do, probably has a lot of the same records that you do, has gear that sounds like your gear. It may not be the exact gear, but it sounds like the gear that you would purchase or would play on. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why there's 30 of us out there doing it rather than just one. And that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. Because there's no way to cover this for everybody.
And I think that is the point that gets not mentioned a lot. Like, especially when a company will take and shotgun out there a lot of demos. Now, as putting my marketing hat on, I have an opinion on that, but it's not the same criticism that everybody else has, where it's like, oh, I'm just being marketed to. It's like, hey, if you were thinking about buying a pedal and you didn't necessarily have the opportunity to play it yourself, wouldn't you want to hear as many different examples in as many different contexts with as many different hands as physically possible? Wouldn't that be the ultimate situation for making a purchasing decision?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how is that bad? And if you don't want to hear all those demos, you know what you can do? You can not watch them.
Yeah,
you can not watch them. It's really easy.
Yeah, for most of the time, I disregard any kind of negative comment whatsoever. But there was one guy who just got me the right way a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, you have infinite choices of what you can spend your time on. Like, you could, like, YouTube in and of itself has millions and millions of videos. You could watch any of them. I recommend the guy who clears storm drains because that guy is amazing. Those are the best videos. As Jesse from 29 Pedals, he was the one who tipped me off that. He's like, have you ever seen this dude's videos? And then I was like, no. And I checked it out. And it was like 6 hours later, I'm still watching this guy clearing storm drains. It's amazing. Like, you have, or read a book, go outside, call your mom, like, you can do anything with your time. Nobody's forcing you to do any of this stuff.
Play your guitar.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I look at me personally, and I look at where my subscriptions were before. My subscriptions have grown a lot now, my own personal, because, I have more connections with people on a personal level who are doing content creation. But, prior to getting into this, it's like I was subscribed to Andy. Well, Andy was not yet on his own, so I was subscribed to Reverb, but, and prior to that, Pro Guitar Shop and RJ. And, like, when I think, I'm not saying that I am anywhere near as good of a guitar player as either of those guys, but stylistically, I think that we all kind of fall in the same area. I was not subscribed to somebody like Knobs because I would watch Knobs videos and I go, this doesn't mean anything to me. Like, I don't bleep and bloop and all this other stuff. And and I think that's kind of what it boils down to. I could watch Andy do the same unit that Knobs did, and it makes sense to me when Andy does it. Doesn't make sense to me when Knobs does it. And that, and again, it's like Dr. Pepper or Pepsi, like going with the Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, it's And for me personally, I do bad versions of both of those things. So they're both valuable for me. So, like, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool. And I get inspired by one, and then I'll watch something else and like, okay, yeah, that's great. Like, I love that there are so many options. If there's something I'm seriously considering, I want to watch as many things as possible, especially if it's a more expensive unit. You know, some of these things are as much or more than, guitars that I own. And so I want to know as much about it as I can before. And this isn't even saying that the unit's good or bad. It's just like, maybe it's too much for me.
Sure.
Like maybe it's a big sky and it's going to overwhelm me and I don't want to mess with it. I'm just using that as an example, but like,
yeah, you're like, I don't know how to code.
Right. Like, I don't know, man. Like sometimes I like things to be a little more straightforward and sometimes I like to get really weird. Yeah. But I like having the information and I don't see how that can be viewed as anything but a positive.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. And you know what? If somebody gets compensated for the time, that's fine.
Nope. Everyone's got to do it for free.
Yeah.
Do it for free or it's not real. But then, I had Andy Ferris on a few weeks ago and he brought up a good point of
time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I heard it.
Yeah.
That was great. He's a smart guy for having weird hair.
Yeah, for people who haven't listened to that episode, go back and check out the whole thing. It's really good. But the nutshell version is he, had a pedal. In his particular example, it was a TC electronic pedal. And he did not pay money for the pedal, but he was obligated to make a video for it. And that video was going to take him several hours to potentially all day to make. Was the pedal then free? That's the question. I would argue that it wasn't. And I think he would make the same argument. But some people would argue that it is. I disagree with them. I don't see how you can view it that way. But then everyone's entitled to be wrong.
So, yeah. But then at that point, the other argument is, with his time, did he effectively, with his time, he paid for said unit. Now, the question is, like, does that warrant a disclosure? And that's, and if there is that disclosure, is that disclosure necessarily important? And if Andy decides that it's a one-to-one thing, his time paid for that pedal, therefore everything is canceled out and puts it up without that disclosure. And like, is he a trustworthy person? And that's what we keep coming back to. Or let's say he decides that it is worth a disclosure, and he opens up that can of worms, disclose that he was given the product in exchange for a review. Does that make him a trustworthy person? And it's just like, man, I just don't know. And I feel like, to a certain extent, like, I feel like this argument was meant for an industry that isn't ours. I feel like this was meant for like the makeup YouTubers and or maybe in the world where, people will take, if the dollar figure is right, they'll, I feel like Shaq, for instance, like, what will Shaq not do advertisements for?
I was just at Office Depot and he's apparently the spokesman for Office Depot chairs right now.
Yeah. I mean, Shaq is just a prime example of, like, if the dollar figure is right, Shaq will do any commercial you ask him to.
And if I was Shaq, I probably would too. Not gonna lie.
And, I don't see anybody like that in our industry. So with Shaq, you can be like, do you use the general insurance? No. Probably not. Do you buy your office chairs at Office Max? Probably not. But with us, it's a different thing, because again, kind of like the behind the scenes thing. Like, do we spend the time on it? Do we turn down things that we don't care for and favor things that we do? like, and the answer is yes. Everybody has their own answers to, which one of those things applies to them. But the answer is there's nobody who's just for hire out here. Man, yeah, I didn't intend on going down this topic, but
I didn't either. But hey, it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
I think there's another question using the Shaq example. So, do you then trust Office Depot / Office Max less, or Shaq less, because they did that commercial?
Well,
not really. Like, it's just like, if I need something from Office Depot, I'm going to get it. And I'm glad Shaq got paid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
Yeah. So, that's an interesting question, too. And do you want someone like Shaq? Like, is Shaq an expert in office chairs and ergonomics and things like that? And, it's probably not. I don't trust. I see them as doing a thing where they're putting a recognizable face on a product. And, like, I don't see anything wrong with that. It doesn't make there's nothing wrong with the product. There's nothing wrong with Office Depot. But, is Shaq the authoritative voice on office chairs? No.
I mean, I think
maybe he is. Maybe
he's
he
the
is.
only one I've seen advertising for him. So I'm going with yes.
Yeah.
Shaq must know.
Yeah, maybe it was one of maybe he's doing the general and Office Max for like free because he's like, man, I'm just so passionate about this insurance.
There's nothing that gets me fired up like this insurance company.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was an interesting road to walk down. I know for myself, I made a video on this, and I think I did it. It might have actually even been a little bit before the In the Blues thing came out. I'm not 100% sure on the timing on that, but I basically came to the conclusion that, hey, if I'm getting dollars, you're going to know in some way. Everyone that sponsors the podcast, everybody that you already listened to at the top of this episode, they provided me with dollars for that privilege. But if I truly thought that it sucked, you're not going to hear my voice saying it. Now, there are some like YouTube style ads that aren't me talking and that I don't necessarily have a ton of control over. Those are one thing. But if I am sitting there being like, hey, you know what? This thing is cool. That means I tried it and I am telling you that it's cool. And if I say this podcast is sponsored by so-and-so, that means they were paying me. And, I am sorry if that bothers you, but I don't know what to tell you. I put them all at the top and at the very, very end so that I can do my best to keep the content as undiluted as possible. But I also have an electrical bill.
Yep.
So, it is what it is.
Yeah. And the idea that this doesn't cost money to create this stuff is crazy. Like when was the last time you shopped your cameras? Like there's so, like you want to talk about a racket, like cameras and lenses is insane. I'm with you on that. And I had another thought and then I totally lost it. Gosh.
Oh no.
I hate that. And it's going to come to me later, but
it will tonight while you're laying there.
I'm just going to text you at 3 a.m. And then you're going to be like, man, that would have made the whole show.
That really would have done it.
Oh yeah. So here's just a little fun fact. So I finally, I felt that I disclosed that I was being compensated in my own way on videos, and but everybody since that Shane video is really, really fixated on checking that box and having that disclosure go up. So really negative side effect of that I have discovered is I read through Google has a, kind of like a, real legalese about what that means, in terms of, all the implications of checking that box and disclosing that you were paid to do something. And one of the weird things is that they will tailor their advertisements on your channel to not compete with the thing that you may be displaying or demoing. And so what I'm kind of bummed out. So I've done 2 now, where I have made sure to make sure that disclosure was checked. And the advertisements on my channel, which used to be stuff like Sweetwater and different guitar related things, are now for like makeup, stuff like that. And you know what? Like, I feel terrible. Like, that's a bummer to me, because the reality is that you as a viewer could have watched one of my videos and then, because of that Sweetwater ad, saw something that you wanted to go get at Sweetwater. Or found a new person, joined Fender Play, or did, musician, or, whatever else. Like, everything was music related, but now, because of checking that box, now I'm going to, YouTube is going to annoy you with ads that have absolutely nothing to do with what you're watching, because they don't want to compete.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Right.
Liberty.
Yeah. If you're not tired of that emu, like you will be now.
I feel bad even having said that. I just gave them free advertising.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, gee whiz. I'll have to cut that out.
So yeah, I mean, it's not this whole problem created and supposedly solved in one video is not the solution, I don't think. And I'm gonna keep on playing along, but I don't enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely click the button when it's something like that. I don't do those as often, but I definitely have clicked the button, and I never really thought about that side of it. I didn't think at all that it was going to change the ads that people would see outside of the video itself, but it definitely would have an impact. And I also understand from YouTube's perspective why they would want to do that, right? Like, oh, if you're, we don't want to intrude on your thing. But like you said, it's not so black and white. There's some gray area in there. And then, there's, I don't know what to say. We've kind of beat this horse to death.
We have.
It's just pulverized at this point.
So what do you think about Stratocasters? I think they're great guitars.
I don't know why anyone would play one. No, we have crested the hour mark.
Excellent.
I haven't even given you like any opportunity to talk about anything. I'm sorry. You didn't given no opinions. Terrible.
Yeah, I just listened to you talk the whole time. Yeah, no, this wasn't like the get to know you that we were looking at doing, but it's on my mind, and it's on the minds of other content creators, because I talk to all of them, and everybody's very confused right now, and feelings are kind of raw, and so it's on my mind. It's the thing I'm thinking about.
Yeah, then it is what it is.
Yep.
But I've got the classic questions to wrap up on, so we can at least get a little bit more into the meat and potatoes of you. But before we do that, is there anything that you want to plug? Is there anybody you want to shout out? Is there a recipe you'd like to share? Would you like to give a message to your great aunt? What would you like to do? This is your time to do it.
I would like to. The one thing that I would like to talk about is that we are doing this live show on Demos in the Dark now, and it's we got the first 4 lined up. We mentioned earlier that we're got the guys from Phantom Planet, we got Brian Fallon, we also got Chris Benson, we got the guys from Seuf Guitars. I got a whole bunch more that are coming down, and it's going to be unscripted. Interview between myself and them, and I don't know where it's going to go, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I would love for people to come watch me either win or lose at this at least for the first one.
Nice. That should be a lot of fun. Do you know when the first episode's dropping exactly?
Yes. Hold on. I think it's June 17th. June 10th.
Okay.
June 10th.
June 10th. Okay. I'm not exactly 100% sure when this episode's going to come out, but I'll let you know. And everybody, if this is after June 10th, go over to his channel and watch him anyway. They'll still be there.
Yeah.
I don't know when this is coming out. So, yeah. Okay. On to the classic questions, and we'll wrap this up before we do a little Patreon action. First, what is your favorite boss pedal?
The CE2.
CE2. Okay. That was a quick poll. Why do you like the CE2 so much?
It's just like, it's the classic. It's like, it's every record that you heard in the 80s. Like if you want to go for that chorus sound, like that's it. Like it's a 1-to-1. Like that's what that sound is. So it's like you hear a Tube Screamer. It's like, it's a Tube Screamer. Like that's that's that sound, and it's great. It's a great sound.
The Boss CE2. Okay. All right, here we go. This is the big one. This is the one I hope you've been prepping for. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
My favorite kind of pizza right now is actually a sausage pizza with celery and onions.
Celery?
Yep.
Celery. I didn't see that coming.
It's super good. It doesn't taste like anything, but you get that texture. You get that crunchy celery texture, which is nice.
We're talking finely diced celery here.
No.
Do we put this on before it's cooked, after it's cooked?
It is.
How's this work?
No, it's cut up like you would cut, like in the little half moons, like you would cut up any other celery. And you put it on before you cook, under the cheese.
Under the cheese.
Yep.
Now, wow. Now I've heard everything.
Yep. Yeah, and what I haven't been able to have it in a long time because my son is 4 and he loves pizza, but he's a 4-year-old, so he only wants cheese pizza. And so whenever we order pizza now, like my wife will usually get the like a small something that is interesting and has flavor, and I will do the cheese. I will split a cheese pizza with Harrison, and he has begun calling it like cheese pizza is now Dad's pizza. Like I want Dad's pizza, and so I was thinking at some point I was going to like if this path I'm on in my life does not work out, I will someday open up a pizza place called Dad's Pizza, and it'll just be cheese.
Just cheese.
Just cheese.
I like it. I mean, a good cheese slice, when done properly, is pizza in its purest form. So
there you go.
It
is. It's like going straight into the amp.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You put celery on to add a Tube Screamer? Is that how that works?
Yeah. The celery is the CE2.
Okay. There we go. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a blast.
All right, everybody. For Ryan, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right. I hope you enjoyed that episode, everybody. I know I enjoyed the chat. I know we got a little bit spicier than we normally do. But hey, that is where the conversation led. And if you would like more of it, there's more on Patreon. So if you have the ability, if you could help support this show and get extra content, just $5 a month will get you extra episodes beamed directly to your ears in whatever podcast player you are using to listen to this over on Patreon. You go to patreon.com/tonemob, and for $5 a month, you too can get access to what I like to call the cool kid area. So if you're a cool kid, and let's be honest, you're a cool kid, please slide over there and support. But don't do it. I just want to put this out there. Don't do it if it's a stretch. Only do it if it's real comfortable for you. Take care of yourself first. I really appreciate all the support everyone has given me over all these years, but you have to take care of number one, and I will keep bringing this content to you for free every week. So if that's you, please share it with a friend. Tell somebody about it. Get it out there, because the more people that listen, the more chances I have to get really rad guests and just keep this whole thing chugging along. So please share with your friends if at all possible. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here, I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.